starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night, depending upon when you're watching this. It's Common Ground with John THEILLON. Welcome. I am your host, your coach of communication, your captain of collaboration, and of getting toward that common ground, getting to that common ground, that we're all searching after. I'm also the mayor of Reeltown. Don't forget that. That just means, for if you're not familiar with it, that I'm always working on. I'm looking to keep things as real as possible, right down the line. Kind of like the old Howard Coast sound, tell it like it is. No sugarcoating. Always doing what I can to be as real can be. With some people, it doesn't go over well. I have to be honest with you. They just can't, won't, or don't want to live in Reeltown, and that's okay. But with others, they crave it. Be a craver, Hey, we're coming to you today like we almost always do from the studios of Hamilton Media's Hamilton Radio, just off of where I-195 and US Route 206 meet. That little confluence there in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. Mere moments, if you will, from the Garden State capital of Trenton. Yeah. I want to give a quick acknowledgement to my friends right over there at the Circle Deli. Yeah, right off of the traffic circle there, right next to the Taco Bell. But Circle Deli in Hamilton Township. Yeah, nice people. I pop in there, get myself a drink and a little something to munch on to, tide me over as we speak. Hey, Hamilton Radio, it's an iHeart radio station, don't you know, and the flagship station of Common Ground with John THEILLON, as well as the Exceptional Radio Broadcast Network, the ERBN. For the absolute best, I have to tell you, it's not just because I'm a part of Hamilton Radio, it's because I'm a listener, a consumer as well. For the absolute best, whether it's music, whether it's podcast shows, we're going to be getting more and more into that as things unfold this year. But, the music, outstanding indie groups, indie artists. Just had a great show last night about a great group called Voodoo Moonshine. Look them up on YouTube. You'll be happy you did. To all the greats, all the great stuff that makes up basically the soundtracks of our lives, from the early days of rock and roll right up until basically almost present day, the grunge era, and then some. It's listen, it's where all the cool kids go, or where people go who just need that music fix. That's, I got to tell you, hamiltonradio.net, hamiltonradio.net. The website is new, it's updated. We just did that a few weeks back, and people are really enjoying it. So you can always go to iHeartRadio.com, and when you do, search for Hamilton Radio Oldies, but your best bet is HamiltonRadio.net. However it is you tune in, turn on, and crank it up, it is really the best in music and entertainment, all on one outstanding platform. Again, HamiltonRadio.net. Hey, so today I want to discuss something that's, it's kind of important to, I think, everybody. Pardon me, if you will. It's about being positive and productive right where you are, okay? As we continue forward, again, after that common ground that we're all about. Yeah, because we're all looking for our common ground. We may or may not know it outwardly, but trust me when I tell you, we've all got that common ground that we're striving for. And I've fallen victim to this through the years, as soon as I get out of this situation, then I'll be happy. Or, as soon as I get a better job, then I'll start working harder. Yeah. As soon as I get over, this sickness, I just can't seem to shake it, then I'll cheer up. Yeah. I'll have a good attitude. Yeah. But really, I have to tell you, it's a good idea to learn to be positive and productive, not when we get out of our situations, but anytime. Just learn how to be at any time. Have a good attitude. Do the right thing even when things may be less than right. You know, things that are like that around us or happening directly to us. Here's one. It sounds kind of corny, but it really isn't. Be a blessing to somebody else, to other people, even when nobody may be being a blessing to you. It's pretty much that we ought to be faithful in the proverbial wilderness, so to speak, if we're ever going to make it to our promised land, our common ground. And it's one of human nature's inherent flaws. It really is. We like to make excuses. We just do. And you know what? So often, and I've said this even around here, excuses are like rear ends. Everybody's got one, and they both stink. And, you know, most of the time it's the truth. You know, I'll do it as soon as I get out of these problems. Or, you know, as soon as my kid straightens up. Yeah, as soon as my job situation irons itself out. There you go. And on and on and on. Yeah, no. That's totally backwards. If you want things to change, you've got to sow a seed, plant that seed by doing the right thing first. You've got to pass that little test. It's not a big test, it's just a little small test. Well, you know, this company doesn't pay me enough. I'm not going to work hard around here until they do. Really? All right, here's a suggestion. And I've been there too. Believe me, I've been there too. But here's the thing. Don't work in on-demand mode. How about work for the boss? You know, that boss, our creator. Work for the boss mode. He's the one keeping the records. If you'll do the right thing, even though the less than right thing may be happening right there and then to you, you're planting a seed to be raised up higher. Yeah, maybe not literally, come on in, Chad, we want to give you a promotion. Sue, you've been doing great work. Let's give you that promotion. It may or may not be that raising up higher, but it's being raised up higher. I heard about a young guy in his 20s, mid-20s. He was born with a terminal lung disorder. Could you imagine? He couldn't fully breathe correctly and on his own. He had to carry around this oxygen tank pretty much everywhere he went. And he was constantly in and out of the hospital, very susceptible, you can imagine, very susceptible to any kind of germs. Infection, it was easy for him to get a respiratory infection. It really was. And naturally speaking, it really seemed like he had a real good reason to live his life with a big old chip on his shoulder, you know? Seemed like he had a real valid reason to be grumpy and sour and just, and he didn't. He wasn't. He was different. He was positive. In spite of his situation, he was productive too. He never went down, for example, he never went down to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, to get a handicap placard or sticker for his car. Didn't do it. Didn't do it. He didn't want that kind of image in front of him, you know, identifying him as that. He just didn't. He never sat around feeling sorry for himself, saying, why me? No, why me? He went out, got a good job. He excelled at his position, got promotion after promotion after promotion. He was very involved, too, with his church, active in the youth ministry. He was a giver. He's a doer. And everywhere he went, he left that place better off than before he had gotten there. See, in the middle of his situation, of this struggle, of this affliction that this guy had, he was fruitful. He was positive in spite of that adversity, in spite of those, never mind curveballs, that was like the unhittable knuckleball being thrown at him. So, you know, he just kept on being productive. So, check it out. One day he gets a phone call from the hospital nearby, and they told him, hey, we've got some good news. We've got new lungs waiting for you. He had a transplant. He was on a list, and it just looked like, whatever. Is it going to happen? We'll find out. Well, he found out. It was successful. They did the procedure. Everything went great. And today he doesn't need oxygen. He doesn't need to lug that tank around anymore. He can breathe a big old gulp of fresh air like you and I can. Just like that, you know. He's living a normal, healthy life. But he could have so easily had a bad, negative attitude, you know. As soon as I get free from this disease, then I'll start being good to other people. You know, as soon as I get my transplant, yeah, as soon as God heals me, then I'll get cracking around here. I'll start using my gifts and my talents. But right now, it's just too difficult. You know, I've just got too many obstacles. No. He had that victor, however you want to say it. He had the victor mentality and not the victim mentality. And no matter what comes against you and I, against us, you know what? What do you say we make up our minds that it's not going to stop us from going after being our very best? Why would we not, give this a shot? It's not going to stop you from doing good things, going to good places, from traveling to interesting destinations, to going to wherever it is you like to go to worship, even to going to places as mundane as the grocery store or the shopping center or the outlet mall down in Jackson or wherever it is by you. Okay, it's not going to prevent you from doing worthwhile work if you know what's good for you. If you know what you're worth, then go out and get it. No matter what, it's not going to stop you from enjoying your life. So here's the thing. To be determined, it's a good thing. Some of these people, oh, he's so headstrong. No. He's determined. She's so, forge ahead. No. She's determined. So is digging in our heels. And also the good thing is saying it doesn't matter what it looks or feels like, and that we're going to have a good attitude and we're going to be fruitful and productive right here in the middle of whatever curveballs get tossed our way. See, that's the seed that we really should be sowing for things to either stay good or to change for the better, to get good. Come on. I mean, hey, crap happens to every one of us. I mean, there's always a bad thing here, an unfortunate circumstance there, or something that just, blindsides us someplace else. How about falling or not falling into the trap of, well, I'm not going to work hard at my office, at my job, because I don't believe anybody appreciates me. I don't ever get any credit. So when I get that new job that I've really been praying about, then I'll give it my best. Yeah, there you go. Then I'll get to work on time, for example. Then I'm going to really start to showcase what I can do. Well, just because you're praying about it, if you've got some jerk-off attitude, man, it's not going to work. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Now, take it in the right sense when I say that too. But with that overall attitude, pardon me, that whole attitude and perspective and demeanor, there's a good chance that you're never going to get that new position, great or even not so great. First things first, okay? Little tip from your Uncle John. Pass the test right where you are. If we're not faithful in the little things, how the heck can the boss trust us with the bigger things? Listen, if it's your job to sweep the floors, then every day you need to sweep those floors with all of your mind, all of your might, all of your heart, and all of your soul, and all of your being. That's your thing. So do it well, to younger people who may be, out there, just digging in with that, little job. After school, maybe on weekends or whatnot. If you're making minimum wage, say at the hamburger joint, okay, don't be sloppy about it. Don't be a lazy shit sack, as they say. Don't do it half-assed. Don't. Do what you do with excellence. Listen, if we're not faithful in what seems to be the insignificant stuff, it's going to be a tall order to go to the big stuff, the higher things. I've discovered, and if you don't have a good attitude making minimum wage, you're probably going to have a real poor attitude also as a CEO if you ever get there. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. A little something back in my past. I'm 16 going on 17 years old. It was the summer of 1981. I was working at the sporting goods, sleeping bags, and models section of Toys R Us, just over on Route 18, East Brunswick. I was also trained to run the cash registers if when needed, So in the summer, I did that a couple of evenings a week, and Sundays from, I think it was 12 noon to closing. Not a lot of hours at minimum wage, which back then I think was $2.65. Again, it was 1981. But here's the thing. It was enough to get me some walking around money, some extra jingle in my pocket, along with the money that I made caddying during the day over at the Metuchen Golf and Country Club just off of Plainfield Road, I worked at the Toys R Us, I don't know, from about late May, early June that summer until it was time to go back to school in September. They knew it was, only going to be a summer thing, and they were cool with it. So I guess I must have done a decent job at my little summer job. Why? Because at about middle of November, the Toys R Us manager, Art was his name, he called and asked me to come back for the Christmas holiday push. And it started right after Thanksgiving and went till just after New Year's Day, a few days. So I said, yeah, sure. He goes, listen, there's probably going to be more hours because we're open till midnight, and it's going to get busy. And it did. Oh, my goodness. So interesting to note. I remember that I was getting more hours than many of the other summer seasonal people who had come back, like myself. I worked 3 or 4 nights during the week from 6 p.m. till midnight. When actually it was later because we would close at midnight and then we would have to clean up to be ready for the next day. So there were nights I didn't get out of that place until 1, 1:15, 1:30, quarter of 2 in the morning. Yeah. The first time that happened, my mother was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing. We had to clean up," And then I went all day, either on Saturday and or sometimes Sunday, both. Saturdays and Sundays through December. I was a busy boy. But you know what? Again, I had some scratch in my pocket and then some due to the more hours they gave me. This came in very handy, I've got to tell you. It was great. Number one, it came in very handy for buying Christmas presents for mother, for dad, a couple of buddies of mine who I wanted to get stuff for, my girlfriend at the time, and a handful of my cousins and so on. Very, very timely, this extra money, because I wasn't caddying because it was snowy and cold and there was no golf going on. Plus, I was at school during the day and Toys R Us at night. And the other thing it was very helpful for, right in the middle of all of that, it was for taking my girlfriend out for her birthday, which is December 19th. It was a Saturday that year. So I had to specifically ask off for that night well enough ahead of time. So I made sure I did. Right when I went back, I'm like, hey, Art, I need the 19th, at least the evening. And if I'm thinking back, I worked during the day that day too. I just cut out of there, I think, at either 5 or 6 o'clock to be ready to go and get cleaned up for my date. But the thing of it is, that little job at Toys R Us, it helped me immensely to pay for stuff. For the presents for my friends and family, for my girlfriend, and also to take her to Chan's Gardens in Dunellen for Chinese. It was one of those better Chinese restaurants. It got in a feature on the Channel 7 Eyewitness News out of New York City. So a buddy of mine said, hey, you may want to go here. So we went there, all because, here's the reason, all because I treated that dopey little job at Toys R Us that summer, at, again, just 16 years old. By the Christmas time, I was 17. I treated it like I was the store general manager and not some part-time schlub who was just here a few days a week. I wasn't some social drone putting in my time at the JOB, because there were them too, I got to tell you. Some kid named Todd, man, he was, he didn't last long. Anyway, I remember that December, that Christmas season, that many of my high school pals, my buddies, they were shaking the couch cushions for money or asking mom and dad for some money. I was not. And that was pretty good. Why? Because, I had a good attitude about it. I don't know why. I was 17. I just did. And I was happy to have the opportunity, I guess, to make some money. Here's another one. You ready? Be faithful. Be on top of it right where you are in your relationship with your person, your significant other, maybe your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, whatever you want to call it. Maybe your person is not always everything you'd want them to be. Listen, again, we're human, okay? Like Billy Joel said, we're supposed to make mistakes, all right? Maybe there are some things about them that are not always optimal. He doesn't spend much time with you, or she doesn't communicate very well. And you're tempted to think, well, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. When they change, I'll start treating them better. Okay, cut it out. Seriously, be the bigger person. How about succeeding by being kind to them, even though you might believe that they don't deserve it all the time? Why don't you plant a seed by doing your best to keep the peace in this relationship? Whatever it may be, How do you do it? Glad you asked. Be positive, be fruitful, be productive in spite of any of the curveballs. And then I got to tell you, it's just my belief here that the boss, once again, thank you, he's going to help to turn things around. When you say, it's just not fair, you don't know what I've been through, I've got this sickness, or at work, things just suck thanks to an over-officious micromanagement asshat of a manager. They're just not treating me right. Really? Listen, I get it. I do. Again, I've been there, I've worked there, I've done that, I've wrote the manual, I bought the t-shirt and even got the necktie, okay? I realize it may not always be fair, but what I'm saying is living life in a negative way all the time, being bitter and being sour and being, okay, going around with a chip on your shoulder, always trying to pay somebody back, all that's going to do is going to put poison in your own life. Again, been there and done that too. All right. Listen, we've all, may have been dealt a tough hand to deal with from time to time. Maybe you've been through some big disappointments, or even right now there are things going on in your life that are just something's not right. I get it. And with that, I also understand that it's very easy and very tempting to get discouraged, to get, negative, to get bitter and sour and what. It's very easy to get complacent and just kind of sit back and say, you know what? What's the use? I don't see this thing changing. Well, you got to look a little harder. Again, I get it. Being upbeat, positive, can do, of good cheer, it all looks great when you see it on proverbial paper, literally or figuratively. It sounds great when you hear it. When you heard it out of anybody who anybody who you see on TV or radio, or even the likes of me. It sounds great when someone else says it, but it is easier. Well, you know what? It's easier said than done, Jono. Yes, I understand, but is it though? Is it always though? Have you at least given it a shot? A fair, bona fide shot, okay? Notice I didn't say try, because I don't like that word try. You get no rewards for trying. Well, I tried. Too bad. Don't try. Get to it. Give it a shot. The message today, once again, is this, folks. Keep being your best. Keep being your best, you people, right where you are. Right where you are. Because that's where you are. It sounds logically stupid. Well, no kidding, that's right where I am. Yes, but be your best right where you are. Keep being faithful, working on doing the right thing, even if nobody else really sees it. Now, with that in mind, know this. The boss, he sees it. He's the one in control. He's the one that brings the promotion ultimately. Harry Truman had a thing on his desk, the buck stops here. No, maybe at the presidency back then it did, but the buck stops with the boss. It's as simple as that. Let's go to the Bible for a second, where it says, and I'm going to read this one here, God lifts up one and he brings down another. Got it? God lifts up one and he brings down another. If you can just keep a good attitude in the middle of the curveballs coming at you, if you can just keep a smile on your face and keep being good to other people, even though they're not necessarily always being good to you, let me tell you something. In the long run, you're going to always come out ahead, folks. It's just that simple. Take it to the bank. Seriously. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In the long run, you're going to prosper. You're going to be happy. You're going to see your dreams begin to come to pass, okay? There's just so many different nuances of success. Yeah. Everybody thinks success is dollars and cents. Okay, it's a part of it. It can be a part of it. But you know what? Are you happy? Are you aware, doing things with people that make you happy more so than not? Think about this. Again, back to the Bible for another few moments. Think about Joseph. Remember that? Remember that guy? Nobody had more unfair things happen to anybody in their lives than Joseph. His brothers were hugely jealous of him. They couldn't stand him. So you know what? They tossed him into a pit. Into a pit. Come on. Eventually, they ended up selling him as a slave in Egypt. Can you imagine? And then Joseph spent 13 years, that's a baker's dozen, cousin, spent 13 years in prison for something that he did not do. He was accused by the guy Potiphar's wife. He worked for a guy named Potiphar, and I forget the wife's name, but she accused him of getting creepy, coming on to her, wanting to do very bad things, and it just wasn't true. But he did 13 years in the joint because she said so, and Potiphar got bent out of shape, and Bob's your uncle, and he went, okay? But really, the lesson that we can learn from Joseph's life is that he didn't get ticked off, hacked off, torqued off, pissed off, whatever. He didn't. He didn't get bitter. He didn't get angry. He didn't just sit around and say, okay, God, When you get me out of all this, then I'll start using my gifts and my talents. God, when I feel a little better, then I'll show these people what I've really got. Joseph did not do that. No, right there in the middle of being force-fed continual excrement sandwiches, wink, he was positive. He was productive. He was upbeat. He was fruitful. He was can-do. And as much as could be, he was of good cheer. And I bet that was no easy task at all. Could you imagine being in Rahway State Prison or Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary for 13 years and being as positive as Joseph evidently was? No way. He wasn't lazy either. He didn't show up late. He didn't have a what can I get by with kind of attitude. He gave it his very best every place he was put. He got promoted. Dig this. He got promoted even when he was in prison. He was so sharp, so skilled, so organized that they put him in charge of the whole prison. What? Okay. One day, Joseph had cause to have some interaction, believe it or not, with the Pharaoh. He interpreted a dream for Pharaoh. Evidently, this was one of Joseph's skills. He was a good dream interpreter. And finally, Pharaoh said, basically, what's this guy doing stuck in prison? He's smarter than anybody around. I've got to bring him out here to me. I've got to bring him out here. I need to put him in place as literally my right-hand man, like the vice pharaoh, so to speak. That's what happened, you see? This is what happens when you stay positive, fruitful, and productive in the midst of whatever curveball or crap sandwich that you're being force-fed. God's going to promote you. He's gonna. He's going to take what the enemy means for evil. He's going to turn it around and use it to our advantage when we do this kind of thing, when we behave this kind of way, you know. And after it was all of this was over, Joseph, he then had 2 sons himself. I think that's pretty significant, okay? He named one of them Ephraim, which means to prosper, to be fruitful, to be productive. He gave him this name because God helped him be positive, fruitful, and productive in the middle of all that nonsense being in prison for that BS reason. He named his other son Manasseh, which means to cause to forget. And he gave him that name because God helped him, Joseph, forget the painful memories of his past. From his brother's jealousy to being tossed in the pit, to being sold as a slave, to 13 years in prison, to the whole Megillah. So if you're ever going to have a Manasseh in your life, you know, causing to forget, you've got to have an Ephraim too, which again is to prosper. In other words, if you want the boss to remove the pains of the past, you've got to be positive and current and productive and upbeat and fruitful right where you are right now. Just keep passing the little test. Just be faithful. Day in, day out, just do what you do, you know? Then, you know, the boss is going to remove the painful memories for you. I'm telling you, I've seen it, it's happened, okay? I've done it, it's happened. You may be here today and you're upset, for example, over a relationship maybe that didn't work out the way you thought it should. And you're thinking, man, I don't know if I could really be happy again. Well, listen, you can be blessed in such a way that you won't even think about what you'd been through previously. The boss can bring somebody new, and he usually does bring somebody new into your life when that happens, okay? So great, so good looking, so positive, so fun to be around, and so fantastic of a person. So much so that you don't even think about that old goat that walked out on you or treated you like crap, like garbage. No reason. Goodbye, gone, done. I'm sure Joseph, after he was put in charge of all the affairs of Egypt, again, he was basically the working vice pharaoh, okay? Pharaoh was the king. He didn't want to do anything. He'd give it to Joseph. He knows how to do. So he did. And I'm sure he didn't dwell on all the other garbage he'd been through. The boss just went ahead and erased those painful memories. In fact, when his brothers came back many years later, they were looking for something, and they had to go to Egypt to get it. The same ones who threw him into the pit, Joseph wasn't even angry with him. He was not. He didn't even talk about it. He didn't even acknowledge it. Go figure that. I'd be ticked, but again, I'm not Joseph. He said, no, I'm not worried about this in the least little bit, basically. It's all over and done with. Moving on. What's next? That is what's available for each and every one of us to do. Okay? It really is. Listen, things may not be perfect in your life, but really the message is you've got to start being your very best right where you are. Me where I am, you where you are, Gino where he is, this one where they are, that one where she is. Hey, you know what I mean? Quit waiting for the boss or whatever else or whomever else to change things for you. The old saying, if it's to be, it's up to me. Well, now you've got the tools to do it. You know what to do. Just do the right thing. Do the right thing, okay? You've got to sow that seed. Be good to others in your life. Be good to people in your life today. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, even the knotheads, the cement heads, and the jerk-offs out there too. Seriously, it's not easy, but you know what? It's funny. I've done that. I've seen some knucklehead in a store, and I just start, hey, how's it going, or something like that, and all of a sudden they go from being a total twit. Sounds like a product, doesn't it? Try new Total Twit in your grocery freezer. No, they go from being a total twit to being, hey, how's it going? Just like that, because someone, whether it's me or whatever, did the right thing. Don't wait for the big break. Don't wait for the mega millions. Because if once that happens, the big break of the lottery, then I'm going to be good to somebody. No. Be good to somebody right now. Today would be good. Just get some seed in the ground, so to speak. Help somebody out maybe who needs it. If you don't have money to help them, because money's not always the answer. It oftentimes is, but it's not always the answer. If you don't have money, you can find something else to give to somebody who is in need. Give them a smile, an encouraging word. Maybe give them a ride, Go visit somebody in the hospital. Go mow somebody's lawn or shovel the snow from the driveway and the sidewalks. Do something fruitful right where you are. You see a need, you fill a need. And people dig that. They're like, wow, thanks. Don't worry about it, Learn to plant a seed. Learn to do that. It's not difficult. Truly, it's not. Get your mind off yourself as much as you can. Quit thinking about your problems only and how unfair it was and what's wrong with your life, and instead start thinking about how you can be helpful for somebody else. There's nothing worse than that self-centered person that we all have encountered, that we all know and really don't like all that much, okay? There's nothing worse than living in a self-centered way. Nothing will steal our joy more than getting up every morning and only having the three of us in mind, I, me, my, in mind. My problems, my heartache, my pain. Stop it. It's enough. Don't do that. It's no. Always asking the boss, so to speak, when are you going to turn this around? When are you going to start blessing me? Okay. Quit thinking about how you can be blessed and start maybe thinking about how you can be a blessing to somebody else. I've said this before. This is not a new thing out of my mouth here on the program here, Common Ground with John Thielon. If you make it your business to make somebody else's day, God is going to always make your day too. Trust me. It's like physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. You know what I'm saying? Again, I've said this before on Common Ground. I've learned that by focusing on what other people need, the boss pretty much always, not pretty much, he always meets my needs. Somehow, I don't know, I just end up on my feet. It's not always easy. It is not. But, boss is good. The Creator knows what he's doing. Some of you are waiting for your ship to come in. Problem is, you haven't sent out a ship. You've got to go out. Start being a blessing. Start being positive and productive. Start being fruitful right where you are. At the same time, don't bitch, grouse, beef, complain about what you don't have. How about this? Learn to be thankful for what you do have. I'm sure everybody's got something. Nobody's got nothing. Even if, but not really. Even if you're living in a van down by the river, at least you're not out in the cold or in the rain and the snow, okay? You may have all kinds of odds against you right now or whenever. You may have been dealt one of those unfair hands, but even with all that, it's important to take what's been given to you and make the very most out of it, okay? You've got to squeeze those proverbial lemons and make some lemonade. Seriously, that's so overused, but it is true. You might be like that young guy with the lung problem. You've got a serious issue. It's serious. But even then, don't allow that to cause you to sit back and wallow in self-pity. Do what you can do. You can't get out of bed? All right. Encourage the nurse to help you with that when she comes in. Pick up the phone maybe. Be a blessing to somebody. Maybe you haven't talked to a high school buddy, in a long time. No reason, just life happens. And, meanwhile, 2 years go by or more. Call them up. Sow the seed, man. Sow the seed. And always remember, you are not the victim. You are the victor. Remember that. That's important. I have to tell you. The boss always causes us to triumph when things get tough. Believe me, here again, think about it in your own life or people who you have known who have had a tough go of it and all of a sudden they triumph. They win. Again, don't sit around wallowing, thinking about your problems. Woe is me. No, don't do it. How is that positive and productive, fruitful, or helpful? It's not. That's the answer. It's not. Get your mind off yourself. The more you think about your problems, the bigger they're going to become. I've been there and done that, and I kind of invented it a little bit, years ago. I heard somebody say, for example, if you own an apartment complex and you rent out the units 80% to the drug dealers, thieves, and cheaters and jerks, and then you rented the other 20% to the law-abiding, stand-up citizens, well, after just a few months, the drug dealers and cheaters and nefarious characters, they're going to run off all the decent folks. Same thing in our heads. If you keep thinking about, why me, this sucks, can it get any worse, blah, blah, blah. Anything you had in here positive, boom, is going to be punted out of there without you even realizing it, I should say. If you spend all your time thinking about your problems, disappointments and whatever unfairness has come your way, yada, yada, yada. Well, after a while, all those negative thoughts are going to run off the positive thoughts, like I said. You're going to go through life feeling defeated and depressed and, trodden on and thinking, man, life's been a bum deal for me. Nothing good ever happens. I know those people. Holy smokes, I've been close to people like that. And you know what? I had to either slide out or straighten them out. And the former is a little easier, but the latter is much more worthwhile, I have to tell you. So quit renting out space in your head, in your mind. Quit renting out that space to your problems. Quit dwelling on the negative. Rent space only to thoughts of hope, thoughts of faith and positivity and productivity and victory. Yeah, victory. Like the Jackson 5. That was a great album, by the way, wasn't it? When you're in those tough times, you're tempted to get discouraged. Again, been there, done it, got the T-shirt. But you've just got to focus on the fact that, I know things that are going to work together for my good because I'm good. I'm tight with the boss. He and I are real good. Just like I know that he's with me. He's taken in this adversity just like with Joseph. He's going to use it to my advantage. He's going to take whatever stumbling blocks and use them as stepping stones for bigger, better, brighter, whiter, sparklier things, greater things. Believe me, the attitude should be, I'm excited about my future. I know good things are in store. I know that there are no weapons that are going to be made that are going to prosper against me. Just not going to go, not going to happen. Then go out every day in spite of these obstacles, in spite of these hurdles, these high hurdles. Be good to somebody. Be positive to someone else. Be helpful for somebody else. And be productive with another person as well. See what I mean? Spread it around. Spread it around. Yes, I know. Some of you are going to say, well, I just work in a real negative environment. These people just don't treat me right. Again, I get it. Been there, worked there too. See it anyway. Get there a little early. I'm not talking if it's an 8 o'clock start that you get there at 7. No, maybe get there at 1/4 of, okay? Rather than strolling in at 3 minutes beforehand. Do good, solid work. Have a smile on your face. Be an encourager, encouraging for other people. Yeah, well, but everybody at the office, they're always late. They always goof off when the boss is out or gone or in a meeting. People are kind of pretty much lazy at work. Well, listen, you're not everybody. If everybody went and jumped off the Verrazano Bridge, would you go and jump off with them too? Remember how your mom and dad used to say stuff like that to you? Yeah, well, Billy's doing it. Well, if Billy went and jumped off the Berwick-Nescopec Bridge, would you jump off there too? Well, no, then don't. You're not everybody. You're a cut above. Be the person of excellence. That's how we were made. That's the way we were made to be. Learn to do what's right, whether anybody's watching you or not. That's called integrity. Take the high road. Treat people with respect, even though maybe they may not always deserve it, with the kindness. If they may be talking about you, okay, let them. So what? If you stay on the high road, even in the midst of this heinous chaos, trust me when I tell you, the boss is going to bring you out of it. He absolutely can. We just have to pass the test. Easy test. This is not like, a 3-hour arduous SAT or the MCATs or the LCATs or whatever, Frady Cats or whatever out there you got to take to get in some sort of school anymore. I'm so glad I don't have to do that because I'd never get in now. But anyway, I was thinking about a gal who I know of through a mutual acquaintance. Lana is her name. She went through a real great disappointment when she was, I'm going to say, probably her early mid-20s. Her marriage didn't work out, and it was a very unfair situation, extremely hurtful. She was pretty much devastated. She never dreamed she'd be facing that kind of nonsense, that challenge, and for a bunch of times, a few months, Lana she'd hardly even eat. Okay, she barely could sleep. She thought she was having nervous breakdown after nervous breakdown. And of course, everybody close to her did their best to encourage her. Of course they would. She's a nice person from what I understand, But it seemed like she was in this dark hole, a pit, just like Joseph. She was in this dark hole and just couldn't get herself out of it. She told how one day that the boss spoke to her, not out loud, but in her soul, in her inner being, basically saying, Lana, you can either sit around in self-pity for the rest of your life and let it sink in deeper and deeper so you're further and further down in this pit, or, you know what, rise up and do something about it. Right there, right then, I'm told that very day that she made the decision that she was not going to waste another moment, another second, another minute being down and out, feeling like she was depressed and defeated, and all of this. It's enough, basta, enough, as they say in the old neighborhood. You know what she did? She planted a seed. She began a weekly class where she went to church every Tuesday night. It was all about healing marriages. Go figure. Okay, well, she knew all about it, believe me. She began to encourage other people struggling in their marriages, other people that were believing and hoping for their mates to return. Yeah. Every week she gave it everything she had, her very best. She was encouraging to people. She shared relatable passages from the Bible. She shared relatable experiences from her own life. And over the years, there have been a bunch, many marriages restored. But see, Lana didn't sit around waiting for the boss to change things in her affliction, in her situation. She didn't just sit around. She was not reactive. She was proactive. She decided to get positive and productive and fruitful. She used the very thing that the enemy came against her with to help others. She planted that seed in the same area. She was faithful. There was times, I'm sure, there were times that she would not go on vacation, I understand, with her family. She wasn't married, but I mean, the mother and dad and brothers and their families, they would all go together. She wouldn't go because she didn't want to miss teaching these classes on Tuesdays. Wow. Oh, okay. This is good. She was productive in spite of her bad situation. And sure enough, the boss, once again, he removed her pains from her past. One day she met a young guy many years later named Ken. They fell in love, got married. Today they have, I think, 2 or 3 beautiful kids. They're as happy as can be. A bunch of larks being as happy as larks. But I think the real key in Lana's victory was the fact that she got productive and busy and fruitful and productive in spite of that adversity. She could still be sitting around today, negative, sour, bitter, griping, grousing, beefing, and complaining, to anybody who wanted or didn't want to hear it, including the boss. Nope. She sowed the seed. She put the seed in the ground. She did the right thing, even though the wrong thing was happening to her. She didn't rent out a bunch of space in her mind to her problems. She didn't stay focused on the negative. She knew as she helped other people in need that she would get her own needs met. Okay? The Creator, God knows how to do. You may be here today and you may be going through a disappointment. Or maybe you're in a situation right now it's really not fair. Here's the challenge. Don't sit around feeling badly and sorry and for yourself. I know, easier said than done oftentimes. I get it, okay? Again, it looks good on paper. It sounds good when you hear it. But do like Lana did and rise up. Get the heck out of there, man. One of the best things you can do is to go help somebody in need, somebody else. You can see. You've been there. You've been through it maybe. So you can recognize it elsewhere. If you really want to get God's attention, you really want to, go be a blessing to somebody else. Yeah. I remember a young fellow who I know, or not so young anymore, actually, he's about my age. His mom, when she was, this is back in 81, 82, she was fighting cancer back then. I was in high school. Instead of coming home when they got her released and discharged, instead of coming home and laying around in bed feeling bad and feeling horrible and feeling depressed, you know what she did? She went down to church where she went and back to the hospital where she was right previously, and she visited with people. She prayed with them too. We've heard a lot about praying these last couple of weeks because of the young man from the Buffalo Bills football team. Damar Hamlin. All of a sudden, it's okay to talk about praying again. I'll be damned. It's never not been okay. This just in. We're going to talk about that one day coming up here soon, too. But it's a good thing. So this gal, she went back to the hospital, and she visited with people. She prayed with folks. Man, how good. Why not? Why not? Okay? And these people were also in the middle of some health issues. Just like she was. Here's the truth. She needed prayer and visits more than these other people did. She didn't see it that way. She was just doing her thing, sowing a seed, knowingly or not. She was just doing the right thing. We get it backwards so often. We talk to the boss, we pray, and we say, as soon as this gets turned around, as soon as you turn it around, God, I'll start being good to people. And then I'll get my family back on track. Maybe we'll even get back to church or something. Then I'll have a good attitude, But no. Here's the thing. If you want the boss to intervene in your life in a positive way, because that's what he does, you want him to remove the pains of the past? First, just be positive. Be fruitful and productive right where you are right now. Listen, I get it. And I know a lot of you today have valid reasons to be unhappy. It just, there's, the last 2.5, 3 years with all this nonsense going on has really put the harsh on the mellow. Okay, with all the you need to do this and you need to do that, from whatever leadership contingency. I don't agree, but that's another topic for another time too. There are a lot of things in your life, I'm guessing, that could drag you down if you're not happy. But the worthwhile challenge is to make the decision that you're going to be happy right where you are. You're going to do like what Joseph did and be good to people anyway. You just got to keep planting the seeds. Back to the Bible again real quick. Think about David. He was the youngest of 7 brothers, and he got stuck with the job of taking care of his dad's sheep. What? Come on, man. Now, I bet it was really lonely and kind of boring out there in the shepherd's field. He was all by himself. I mean, here's a young guy. He's got big dreams in his heart and his head and his future as far as he can see, but he's taking care of the sheep. The sheep. Meh. Thanks a lot, Dad. But see, David possessed the same quality that Joseph did. He didn't sit around thinking about his problems and thinking about how unfair it was and thinking about how it sucked being out in the shepherd's fields. He prospered where he was with what he had. He just flourished in his situation. He wasn't lazy. He didn't do it with a half-baked effort. He didn't. He gave what he did his very best every day in every way. He had excellent spirits. I can't even imagine that, during the day, how boring it must have gotten, how hot in the summer, how cold in the winter. I mean, and the sheep were out grazing, and there they were, just grazing. And then what he would do, he'd get his slingshot out. He'd practice and practice and practice with the slingshot. Whew, okay? Maybe he'd set up a target, over there a little ways down the way. And with rock after rock, he'd see how many times he could hit it. So, day to day to day, he became better and better and more skilled with a slingshot. When a wild animal would come around, trying to, get one of the sheep, he'd take care of it. If he couldn't take care of it, rather, with his bare hands, he'd wing him with a rock from the slingshot. Just nail him time and time again. Think about it. Nobody was watching him. Nobody was observing or supervising him. Nobody was making him do the right thing. He just did it because his spirit was excellent. He was faithful even out there in the wilderness. Truth is, if you think about it, David had a boatload of opportunities to have a chip on his shoulder. He had plenty of opportunities to be ticked off, hacked off, torqued off. The prophet Samuel came to David's father Jesse's house, and he was going to choose one of the brothers, to be the next king of Israel. Well, I don't know if you remember this about the story, but they didn't even bother to, bring David into the house. They didn't even get him out of the shepherd's fields. They just left him out there. David Schmavid, what do you want with him? In their mind, he wasn't even in the running. They thought, yeah, that's just David. He's young. He's kind of small. He's probably never going to amount to much of anything. You know what, Samuel? Don't waste your time with him. Can you imagine how you'd feel if your own family, your own father and brothers didn't respect you enough to give you a shot, to give you a chance? But still, David he just kept passing the test, so to speak. He kept his head held up high, I should say. He knew the boss was in control. He knew that if he kept doing the right thing, his due season would come. The good news is when the boss is ready to promote you, no man will stop you. No man can stop you. No person can leave you out. No circumstance can keep you down. When the boss says, it's time, guess what? It's time. So back again to the Bible, where it says there were several hundred men from the Israeli army that could use their slingshot and hit a small stick over 100 yards away. But isn't it interesting? The boss didn't choose any of these guys. He chose the shepherd boy. David was not trained at the elite military academy with the rest of those sharpshooters of his day. He was trained by himself, self-trained, out of the lonely shepherd's fields all of those days, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, practicing, training, using that slingshot to nail the wild animals who were going to get after the sheep if he didn't. And he never knew he was going to face Goliath one day. But you see, the boss, he knew. What if David had been lazy? What if he had a piss-poor attitude and thought, man, why did I get stuck out here? Life stinks, not fair. He just kept being productive in spite of all of that. He kept developing his skills even though he, quote-unquote, wasn't getting his way. You know the story. He went out and he was poised to face Goliath, and everybody around, they laughed, they mocked, they chortled, they snickered, they laughed again. A lot of laughing, a lot of, you got to be kidding me. And they said, basically, this is all going to be one big giant joke, but really it was David who had the last laugh. And you may not realize it or remember it, but Goliath, he was wearing a full suit of body armor. The only unprotected spot that he had was right here in his forehead, okay? It was the only vulnerable place on his whole body that wasn't covered by that armor suit. Had David not been skilled with the slingshot, he would have not had a chance. He would have not learned the art of slinging the stone with perfection. We wouldn't be talking about him today because let me tell you, the boss, he didn't throw the rock for him. He didn't cause that rock to supernaturally hit the right spot on Goliath's head. No, David paid the price. David developed his talents. David was faithful and positive and productive and upbeat and can-do and of good cheer on his own out in the wilderness of the shepherd's fields. And when it came time for him to get into his promised land, dude, he was prepared. He was prepared. Let me ask you today. I'm asking you, what are you doing with what the boss has given you? Are you making the most of it? Am I making the most of it? Are we making the most of it? I don't know. Only you can answer that for yourself. Are you developing your skills? Are you faithful at work? Are you being the best parent you can possibly be to your kids? Maybe all you have is the equivalent of a few small stones like David. Maybe you feel like you're just taking care of a few sheep. Let me tell you something. If you'll be faithful right here, right where you are, and do what it is you do to the best of your ability, then when the boss is looking for someone to promote, when he's looking for somebody to slay a giant, literally or figuratively, you're going to be ready. And like David, the boss can trust you then, trust me, trust us, to get into a whole new level of wonderfulness and victory and accomplishments in life. But understand our attitudes, how we respond in the tough times, how we treat people when we're not being treated right. These are character builders. Yeah, difficult, not always easy, I get it. We have to pass the tests again. They're not difficult. I have to tell you, they are not difficult, but they just need to be done. If we're ever going to come up higher, we got to do it. So here's the challenge one more time. You'll never forget the pains of the past unless you first get productive, positive, and fruitful right where you are right here, right now. What are you up against? Don't run from it. Don't. Okay? Don't live life, being bitter. Have a good demeanor, a good attitude as much as can be. Put a smile on your face, man, and make a decision with me that you're going to be the best you can possibly be right where you are. I'm doing my best right where I am, and it's not always easy, but you know what? Here I am every week, coming through, with Common Ground with John THEILLON. Truth is, we're going to all face disappointments. We all are going to have unfair things happen. Don't sit back and feel sorry for yourself. Go out and be a blessing to somebody else. That's what gets the boss's attention. That's what's going to bump you up to that next level or 2 or 3 or more. Learn how to sow the seed, to plant the seed in your time of need. That's exactly the ticket. And it's very worthwhile, I have to tell you. And especially as we're all striving and continuing forwards towards our common ground, right? Trust me here, kids. Take it to the bank. Do not doubt me. And as always, by these things I stand. You should too. All right. That's it. That's all of it. Once again, give the rest of the week your best shot. Have a very great weekend too, everybody. I'm going to, slide on out of here as I always do. For now, I'll be back. So thank you. Sincerely, thank you. God bless you. Until next time, this is Common Ground with me, John THEILLON. So long.